Hey, how's it going, everyone? Before this video starts, just a little warning. I just got over COVID, so I'm going to be coughing a lot and pausing the video and drinking a lot of Aquafina. You'll understand in a minute. But basically, I hope you enjoy this video. If you feel like asking me any questions, please let me know, and I'll be happy to try to make a video on them. So, without further ado, let's get into the main video. Bye now. Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to episode 2 of Neanderthal Talks or Neandertalks, whatever we're gonna call this. Might call it something else. Um, I just got over COVID, so if I huff and puff a lot and cough, that's the reason why. Like that example. Today, I'm answering the question of some of my thoughts about the Neanderthals' daily lives. This question was sent in by EA Meggs, the author of the Dreamer series. So go check that out. Link will be in the description, like usual. Uh, and if you want me to talk about something and you feel like listening to it, I know I kind of rant, but whatever. Let me know in the comments down below, and I will try. And if I like the question, I will try to answer it. So today's question was, what are some of my thoughts, or how do I think the day-to-day life of a Neanderthal would play out? And starting off, I think that there's two trains of thought. There would be, or there's a few trains of thought. Let me just say what I think. Obviously, there would be infants. Most Neanderthal tribes or clans would have newborns, I'm assuming. Then there'd be children, teenagers, adults, and then the elders. So obviously, someone needs to watch the children, or the children and the babies. Now, we can assume that the elders would be doing this for the most part, but newborns, so infants, need to be watched by their mother. Fathers can't breastfeed. I don't care who you are. Males don't breastfeed. I know there's some rare instances where this can happen, but again, they're rare for a reason. They're unnatural phenomenons. It's a fun word to say. Pausing for a second, I'm just taking a sip of water. Aquafina, if you'd like to know. Pure water, perfect taste. Sorry about that. So we'll start off with infants. Obviously, infants aren't going to be doing anything. Human infants are kind of useless. I think they were born premature because we have such large heads, and even for like Neanderthal women's had these big, broad pelvises. But even still, their children were bigger than ours, our current children. So obviously, infants aren't doing much. Toddlers are probably running around, getting eaten by cave hyenas if nobody's watching them. So obviously, elders or maybe their mothers or older siblings are watching them. Children, I'm gonna say 5 and to maybe 10. You're probably during those times, and even I think some hunter gatherer cultures today start to get their children to start like let me rephrase that. Hunter gatherer cultures, old and new, or old because hunter gatherer cultures today are the oldest cultures around we have. They usually have their functional children doing stuff for them. So simple tasks. This could be anything from hide working to collecting plants, maybe setting traps, collecting water, watching the youngings, like I mentioned. Uh, Maybe keeping an eye on Grandpa, who is moments away from death. Who knows? um, Moving on from children, toddlers, children. I don't know. I feel like Neanderthal teenagers would be. Oops, that's unprofessional. Let me turn the vibration off on my phone. Um, Neanderthal teenagers, male or female, would most likely be starting to learn the ropes of everything. So hunting, gathering, uh, raising a family. They're gonna start because we know Neanderthal uh, couples, well, even in hunter-gatherer cultures today, are younger. Um, so they're gonna be learning how like we learn to go to work and shit when we turn into young adults. Excuse me. So obviously, I would say probably male teenagers are going to be learning to hunt more, because young females would probably be giving birth, uh, would start to become that age where they're going to be giving birth more often. And obviously, if you're carrying around a baby, um, they're most likely not going to risk you going out and getting kicked in the stomach by an aurochs. It's not good. Um, for men, I feel like men would be doing a lot of hunting and gathering. Um, I feel like the majority of hunting was done by the men. I know I'm probably going to get some flack for that, but evidence shows that men were taking a lot more beatings than the female, even though a lot of mainstream articles will say male and female Neanderthals split the workload. Yes, that may be true, but that doesn't necessarily mean both were hunting. You can get piping strong arms from working hides. Um, and this could be why Neanderthal females appear to have such massive, bulky arms. Sorry about that. I accidentally paused the recording. So I feel like adult females or young females, so maybe like back then it would probably be more acceptable. So like 17 to whenever you stop giving birth are most likely not going on regular hunts. Now, I'm going to assume that this isn't the story for every single clan of the Neanderthals, and obviously Neanderthals spanned across Eurasia. So this is a vast generalization. This obviously isn't scientific or anything. It's all speculation, but it's just a guess from whatever I've researched and read and watched and all that. Excuse me. So going back to it, I feel like a lot of younger females would be doing a lot of gathering, a lot of hide working, a lot of sewing. Now, mind you, men would also have to be sewing because if they're going on these long journeys, they're gonna have to know how to repair stuff. Um, what else? Teaching children. I'm sure both men and females did that. Moms and dads, uncles, whatever. Uh, Basically teaching them. Teaching would be a big part of their day-to-day lives. What else? So obviously gathering and preparing food would take up a large portion. Food is really, I guess, passing on your genes is the driving factors for human beings, but you can't do that if you're starving to death. Um, so I'm gonna assume from their day-to-day lives, hunting was a big factor, especially during spring and getting ready to hunker down for winter. You definitely need to be traveling, killing caribou or ox, bison, the occasional mammoth. I doubt hunting mammoth was a regular thing. That would probably be some sort of ritual, but I don't really want to get into that. So hunting, and we know I just wrote about, or I just did a little quick summary for my Facebook friends or Facebook followers on one particular site where it was used for over 30,000 years, but they found about 30,000 caribou bones. Excuse me, that's gross. They found about 30,000 caribou bones in this French site. Um, so over 90% of the bones were caribou of the 30 something thousand. And then the rest were, or like the 10% was horse or ox, bison, and about 7 different types of carnivore. So obviously, going and talking about carnivores for a second, they we know that hyenas, cave hyenas, Eurasian hyenas, must have been a problem. This, excuse me, especially in sites like Gibraltar and a lot of the Italian sites, we know that Neanderthals were um, encountering hyenas a lot. Like in Gibraltar, you'll find Neanderthal layers, and then like a week will go by, and the hyenas have already moved in. So we got to assume that Neanderthals and hyenas were probably clashing paths quite commonly, more commonly than we'd like to think. Um, so obviously, keeping an eye out for the bone crushers, these terrifying demon dogs, would have been necessary. Uh, I'm sure scouting for new resources would have been great. You can't survive just purely on lean meat, and many wild animals are, in fact, pure lean meat, especially during the spring. Not so much during the fall. A lot of them start to fatten up, as I'm sure a lot of you know, but they're still mostly lean meat. What else? We know that Neanderthals would most likely be preparing a lot of stuff. So bone tools, spears. We can assume that they were using a lot of wooden implements. I like to assume that since we don't find clay bowls, they were most likely using some form of wooden bowl, maybe thatch bowls, weaving things together. Just because I think the saying is the lack of evidence doesn't mean um, whatever. Fuck it, I just butchered that. But the lack of artifacts that say this doesn't mean that they weren't doing this. They had to be using something. These were incredibly smart people. I'm sure they passed down a lot of knowledge to Homo sapiens that they encountered. Um, like birch tar glue. I'm gonna just out on a whim. If we could go back in time, Neanderthals definitely taught Homo sapiens how to do stuff like that. But anyways, and then again, how do I phrase this? God, I'm stumbling my words. Haven't talked in a while. Just got my voice back. Um, but a lot of animal parts can be used, like water can be stored in cow stomachs. A lovely woman named Meme the Cave Woman has been doing a lot of experiments with that. I believe she's used gallbladder, cow stomach, deer stomach, all of which can store water. You can boil water in it. You can tan the hides. Um, Speaking of tanning hides, we almost know for certain that Neanderthals would have been tanning hides daily. So this would have been taking up a big time. Anyone who's tanned a hide, I've tanned a beaver, a bison, and a part of a deer hide and a lamb hide. It takes so much time if you're using stone tools, and we can assume that they were doing this because the most common tool found in Mousterian and Levallois or Middle Paleolithic sites where Neanderthals were present is Reclawers or side scrapers. I'm pretty sure side scrapers I'm sorry, Reclawers are a form of side scraper. That is the most common tool found in Mousterian Neanderthal layers. So they were doing a lot of hide working. And you got to imagine during the Ice Age, they didn't have cotton, they didn't have wool. Um, they were either wearing grass that's been weaved together, like Utsi the Iceman, or they were wearing giant uh, elkine parkas. Sure, Neanderthals would have been cold adapted, but anyone's going to die in temperatures like that. Like right now, it's -20 where I live. If I went outside naked for 3 hours, I'd probably die. Uh, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I'm invincible. I haven't died yet, so who knows? It's a joke. I'm not that dumb. um, if the Neanderthals, if the Neanderthals had fire where they were, because we now know not every single tribe of Neanderthals had access to fire. This could be due What? This could be from lack of resources, lack of knowledge, lack of many things. We certainly know that a lot of Neanderthal tribes and clans did, in fact, produce fire. Um, the big debate right now, or not really the big debate, the big, the big thing, I'll call it the thing, is whether or not they could control fire or not. Personally, where it snows a lot, and I know Neanderthals weren't living in snow 100% of the time, wildfires are rare. Um, and wildfires don't happen very often to the point where you can just go and gather it. So, in my personal opinion, Neanderthals or most Neanderthal groups knew how to produce their own fire. How they went about this, we may never know unless we find direct evidence or indirect evidence. Which actually, we do have indirect evidence. They, on hand axes in France or Spain, they they found hand axes with marcasite on the side, which can only be caused from striking on a piece of marcasite, which is very fun to do, and it's the only method of fire making that I've been able to nail down regularly. What else? Obviously, hunting, preparing animal hides, gathering whatever tubers, nuts, berries, fruit, birds. I'll say birds are gathering. Checking traps. Surely they had traps back then. Maybe fishing, like spear fishing. Inuit use like 17-foot long salmon grabbers, salmon harpoons to fish. Neanderthals might have been doing the same thing. Might even made nets. Sorry guys, I'm gonna take a sip of my Aquafina. We now know that, at least in some areas, Neanderthals were making cordage. And a pretty badass dude named Douglas S. Meyer has been making a net out of cordage, and it's taking him a very long time. But I'm sure if you had maybe 10 people working on this, maybe 5 females, 5 males, whatever, doesn't really matter which gender. If you had 5 people working on this, maybe you could get it done in a month. But he so far has made over 200 feet of cordage, and so they could have done that. We don't know. Gill nets seem very feasible to me. I know it's a difficult technology to do, but Neanderthals had all the time in the world to master these skills. I'm sure. I doubt flint knapping was a big part of their life. I imagine that they did a lot of migrating, or we know that they did a lot of migrating, at least some groups, to go and collect flint. And so I doubt that they were flint knapping a whole lot unless they had access to a regular source of flint like they do in the UK. I'm going to pause the video real quick. Sorry about that. I'm losing my voice a little bit again because I'm rambling. Elders like La Chapelle aux Saints or Shanidar 1 definitely would not be doing hunting, but we know that Shanidar 1 was most likely tanning a lot of hides just due to how his teeth wore down over time. He's using his teeth as a second hand in his case, but a lot of Neanderthals used their teeth or mouth as a third hand to sort of lighten the workload. That may have influenced their facial shape a little bit, but that's besides the point. So to sum it all up, I imagine that their days would have been split into gender roles, like a lot of modern hunter-gatherer societies do. The Hasda people, the females do a lot of the gathering, although males will still do that. but the males primarily do the hunting, and then everybody has something to do back at like base camp, we'll call it. Uh, in the case of the Neanderthals, I would say in the early morning they would do a bunch of work around camp or home. In their case, they'd collect wood, collect the water for the day, start to get fires ready, dry meat. I doubt they were jerkying meat. They probably just threw it up on some racks and let it dry, like the Inuit do again. Also, the Hasdab people. So that's two different hunter-gatherer societies that are polar opposites. One lives in Sahara Desert, not Sahara. Yeah, might be the Sahara Desert, and one lives in the most northern areas you can live, and they both dry meat. Excuse me. I'm gonna drink some more Aquafina so I can finish this. But anyways, imagine in the early morning they're collecting water, collecting wood, drying meats, working on hides, doing all this sort of stuff, twisting cordage, which takes a lot of time. The men would probably be off hunting, doing whatever they need to do. Children are playing, learning the ropes of how to twist cordage, work hides, and all that. Elders are most likely preparing things that have been gathered. They could have been cutting up meat. Um, Although I doubt La Chapelle Saints would have been doing much. This individual probably just watched children. We know that he was most likely blind. He had no teeth left, except for two. So a lot of care probably went towards him, which shows humanity, and that's a beautiful thing in my mind. What else? Yeah, just feel like life would be pretty similar to what the modern hunter gatherers do, with just more freedom. Hunting, gathering, taking care of base camp, watching children, making children. I'm sure a lot of rituals happen throughout the day. um, I'm not too sure about hunter gatherer spirituality, but I know most are spiritual people in some ways. Uh, but yeah, I feel like a lot of their lives were very labor intensive, and that would have been why they were so beefed up. They would have been my height, but they would have been 270 pounds of muscle, which is just insane. But yeah, flint knapping, water collecting, hide tanning, just everything you can think of that's a primitive activity they would have been doing in their day-to-day lives. I'm sure if they were, and then again, there's two trains of thought with this. Are they nomadic or are they stationary? If they're nomadic Neanderthals, they have to carry everything with them daily, unless they have camps sat around, which we don't know. So they would have had backpacks, maybe trebuchets, I think they're called. I hope that's not the catapult, or a Travas sled, something like that. A sled where you put stuff on and you push it or you pull it. We can assume that they had those if they were nomadic. I'm sure even the stationary Neanderthals had that. Um, and yeah, it's and if you were living in an open air site versus a cave, which caves aren't really homely, I'm sure you're going to be repairing that a lot of the times. Excuse me, it's falling apart here. But yeah, pretty much anything primitive you can think of, that's probably what they were doing. Hunting. I know I'm repeating myself over and over again, but really, there's not really much else they can do. They're not making YouTube videos, dying in their basement. They're not reading books, although they might have told stories. I imagine they told stories. How Grandpa killed the great cave bear, and he has a cave bear tooth necklace. Just a fun little imagination world. Or how Pa and Uncle killed 20 caribou in one day. Stuff like that, I'm sure they told. maybe trying to figure out new techniques of doing things. And yeah, so that's really just my opinions. Sorry if these aren't really structured. I just kind of talk, and you guys seem to enjoy this. I got a lot of private messages about this. Not many questions. If you feel like asking me a question, like I said in the beginning, go right ahead. I will try to answer it. And maybe this will become a weekly thing. Who knows? I like talking about Neanderthals. I'm sure all you know. And appears some of you like to listen to me. So this has been Neanderthal Joe of episode 2 of Neandertalks, and this has been what do I think Neanderthals did in their day-to-day life. Check me out on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'll see you guys in the next one.